Welcome to a cold and frosty morning in early March. My name's Vince, and today we're going to be talking about guitar. These videos are not designed to be tutorials, they're not supposed to be educational, they're more of a challenge. A challenge to me to not become one of those old men who say, yes, but kids these days don't understand rock music. So I'm going to find out what it actually means, and this video is a challenge to me to do that. A challenge to you too, if you decide to check that out. So the way these videos are going to work is that there's going to be a short section on introduction. There's a section on history to explain the context of where all of this came from. There'll be a section on the gear. There'll be a section on the effects. And there'll be a section on techniques. So yeah, indeed, today we're going to be talking about guitar. Primarily this guitar. This is a 2024 Fender Player Jaguar. In the start of this year, in January, I decided that I was going to get rid of my big stack of mostly unused, unplayed, cheap instruments. Hopefully, over the next couple of months, years, I'm going to get a bit better and really figure out what this thing can do. So I couldn't find much in the way of reviews of the Fender Player Series Jaguar. Recommendations that I did find were to go for either the cheaper Squire Classic Vibe Jaguar, which is I've heard is excellent, or the Fender Kurt Cobain signature guitar. Neither of these are in stock. I did order both of them at various stages, had a horrible nightmare of delivery issues, and instead I decided to go for this because all of the bad reviews that I'd heard said that there are issues with the setup and the quality. But it is already rooted to have humbuckers inside. I decided from my investigations that I wanted a Jaguar. I like the offset shape and the neck. I wanted something with a vibrato system, and I wanted something with humbuckers. And if this is already rooted for humbuckers, this is a perfect setup for me to learn more about modern guitars. So what you see here is a very sped up version of me setting up the guitar. So as with all offsets, apparently you need to install a shim in order to get a right angle with the floating bridge. The shims that I ordered were a little bit too big. Luckily I know how to whittle. You also see me opening up the cavity to have a look at what's inside, make sure it's big enough for the humbuckers, and take very careful notes of where everything is wired to currently and drawing up a wiring diagram. So open up the control plate and have a look at the size of the electronics, the capacitor and things inside there to make sure I can match everything up clearly. I put the plate back on and put the strings back up. And at that point realised the fact that I've set my bridge too low because the action is basically below the level. So I had to raise the bridge up, check all these different things and start the setup. I realised that because it was bought with a set of 9s on it and I've upgraded those to 11s, I needed to do some truss rod adjustments and then had to go through and adjust the action as well. Standard setup things. The first section is that I'm going to take out this humbucker, which is just the regular Fender stock humbucker, and replace it with a overspun PAF set made by Monty's Guitars. I'm going to take the wiring that's in here basically exactly and get a little bit of practice and familiarity with rewiring this thing. Stage 2 would be to replace this neck pickup, again with a humbucker. This means modifying the scratch plate and installing this together with a couple of humbucker frames to cover my mistakes. Stage 3 would be to replace the wiring. Currently we have a master volume and master tone. They're fairly cheap components, so instead we're going to get some CTS pots, a nice oil and paper capacitor, and we're going to do some 50s wiring on there. Really learn about the, dialing down the tone to clean up the sound. Stage 4. Let's say it's stage 4 because I'm not sure when my Stay-Trem bridge will arrive. Huge shout out to Stay-Trem. With a lot of these things, I said that I had some nightmares with ordering the guitars, and they're very happy to sell me a $2,000 instrument that hasn't been made yet. Stay-Trem said, hey look, you'll go on the waiting list and you don't pay for anything until they're in stock, until they're ready to ship, which means that they have a huge amount of faith in their product and that they're not going to take money from me until I'm ready to actually take it off their hands, which I think is fantastic. So huge shout out to them. I'm very much looking forward to installing that. Stage 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stage 5 would be to actually finally replace this scratch plate with one router for humbuckers, which means installing the chrome plates around the switch plate down here, and the chrome plate covering the rhythm circuit. Now this is interesting because here we have a switch which controls single coil splits for the one humbucker. And what I want is the two dials that ordinarily go with the rhythm circuit, but these two dials instead will control partial split of the humbuckers, which is going to be interesting. It will need a switch to say whether or not this circuit is on at all, because I believe that it's always going to affect the tone unless I have the switch on. But this seems like a much more complicated wiring project, so I want to come to that towards the end. But in the end, I will have a Fender Jaguar with a tremolo and a floating bridge neck. It'll have a pair of overspun path humbuckers in there with 50s wiring. It will have a switch for pickup selection, and it will have full partial split wiring for the two humbuckers, and humbuckers that have been selected to also have a decent single coil sound. I don't own a lot of effects. I'm traditionally a bass player, which means I have a compressor, I have a preamp, I have some loop pedals from doing some acoustic stuff, and that's generally it. When it came to the world of guitar, I saw how big an effect all of the pedals and the amplifiers and the different electronics have on the sound, and what a big part of playing that instrument comes from this different equipment. I realized it would take me decades of trying out and buying and selling big cabinets and amplifiers and massive collections of pedals that I decided I didn't want to do that. So instead, I wanted to go directly to the end and buy one of these. This is the Fender Player. This does profiling all of the sounds, and hopefully through this I can figure out and have access to a whole bunch of very high-end amplifiers and actually work out how they affect the tone and the sound, and at the same time figure out the effects that go through and how they go through to different sounds, such that if I decide I do need to invest in pedal X, Y, and Z, then I can buy those. I think that just about wraps it up. I've introduced the guitar that I bought and how I came to own this particular guitar and this particular brand, and the plans that I have for upgrading it and really making it my own, and having a whole lot of interesting adventures with modifying this guitar and making it do things that no guitar in its right mind should be able to do, and hopefully doing it step by step in this way means that I actually appreciate the different aspects and the different sounds that these different modifications will give.